The pain came in waves, each one worse than the last. Sarah Montgomery gripped the frozen tree trunk, her legs giving out as another contraction seized her body. Too early. The baby was coming too early. "Marcus!" Her voice cracked through the winter air. "Please, the baby!" Her mate stood 10 feet away, his back rigid, hands shoved in his jacket pockets. The falling snow settled on his dark hair, and he didn't turn around. "Marcus!" Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps. She could feel the wetness between her legs, warm against the bitter cold. Blood. Too much blood. "Something's wrong. Please, I need the pack doctor." "No." His voice cut through the forest like a blade. Sarah's wolf whimpered inside her, weak and confused. They'd been feeling strange for weeks now, sluggish and sick. She'd thought it was just the pregnancy, just her omega body struggling with the demands of carrying a beta's child. Marcus finally turned. His handsome face was empty of emotion, his eyes cold. This wasn't the man who'd whispered promises in her ear 6 months ago. This wasn't the mate who'd claimed her under the full moon, who'd traced the bond mark on her neck with reverent fingers. "Did you really think I wanted this?" He gestured at her swollen belly, at her body trembling against the tree. "A weak omega? A defective mate?" Another contraction hit. Sarah doubled over, crying out. The baby was coming, whether she was ready or not. The tea. Her mind worked slowly through the pain. "The wolfsbane tea. You said it would help with the nausea." "It was never about the nausea." Marcus's lip curled. "Every cup you drank made you weaker, made the baby weaker. I thought nature would take its course, that you'd lose it quietly, and I could break our bond without the pack asking questions. But you're tougher than you look." The betrayal hit harder than any contraction. "Why?" "Because I have a choice now. Alpha Thornwood's daughter is ready to accept my courtship. A strong mate, a proper beta female who can give me powerful heirs, not some mewling omega runt." Sarah's legs buckled. She slid down the tree trunk into the snow, which quickly stained red beneath her. The baby was crowning. She could feel it, feel her daughter fighting to be born into a world that had already rejected her. "Help me," she whispered. "Please, even if you don't want us, help me deliver her. Then we'll leave, I swear it. Just help me." Marcus took 3 steps backward. "The pack thinks you wandered off during the hunt. Got lost in the storm. They'll find your body in the spring." He turned and walked away, his footsteps crunching in the snow, growing fainter. Sarah tried to call after him, but her voice failed. The contractions were constant now, her body pushing whether she was ready or not. She was going to die here. They both were. Her daughter would never take her first breath, never feel the sun on her face, never know she was wanted. Even if nobody else had wanted her, Sarah did. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, her hand on her belly. "I'm so sorry, baby. I wanted you. I wanted you so much." Her vision blurred. The cold was seeping into her bones, numbing the pain. Maybe that was a mercy. Maybe. A shadow fell across the snow. Sarah's wolf stirred, trying to warn her, but she was too weak to lift her head. Rogue wolves, probably. Come to finish what Marcus started. At least it would be quick. The shadow moved closer. Not wolves. A man. Massive, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that blocked out the falling snow. He dropped to one knee beside her, and Sarah caught a scent that made her wolf wake fully. Pine and thunder and ancient power. Lycan. "Don't." She tried to push him away with trembling hands. "Don't touch. Be still." His voice was deep, commanding. "You're hemorrhaging." He moved with swift efficiency, stripping off his coat and spreading it beneath her. His hands were enormous, scarred, the hands of a warrior. But when he touched her, when he gently shifted her position, his touch was careful. "The baby's coming," Sarah gasped. I can't stop it." "Then don't stop it, push." "I don't know how. Marcus left. Please. I'm dying." "You're not dying." He caught her gaze, held it. His eyes were amber, wolf-bright, and absolutely certain. "Not on my watch. Now push." Something in his tone made her obey. She bore down, screaming as her body tore, as the baby moved. The lycan's hands guided her daughter into the world with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so fierce. "Again," he commanded. "One more." Sarah pushed until she had nothing left. Then suddenly the pressure released and a thin wail cut through the winter air. Her daughter, alive. The lycan moved quickly, clearing the baby's airway, tying off the cord with practiced hands. He wrapped the tiny girl in his shirt, then pressed her to Sarah's chest. "She's breathing," he said, "small but strong." Sarah's arms came around her daughter automatically. She was perfect. Tiny and red-faced and screaming with outrage at the cold, but perfect. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "Thank you." The world tilted. The lycan caught her before she fell back into the snow. "Stay with me." His command cut through the growing darkness. "You don't have permission to die yet. My mate, he left us poisoned." "I know." Something dangerous flashed in those amber eyes. "I could smell the wolfsbane in your blood." He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, cradling both her and the baby against his chest. The last thing Sarah saw before unconsciousness claimed her was his face, set with grim determination as he carried them into the storm. Warmth, softness, the sound of a crackling fire. Sarah opened her eyes slowly, her body heavy and strange. Silk sheets. She was lying in silk sheets. In a bed so large she could have fit 3 people in it comfortably. The room was enormous, all stone walls and rich tapestries, lit by a fireplace that could have roasted a whole deer. Where? A small sound drew her attention. There, nestled beside her in a makeshift cradle of pillows, was her daughter, nursing. Sarah's body had somehow known to provide milk, even through the trauma. The baby's tiny hand was curled into a fist, her eyes closed in contentment. "She's been eating well." Sarah's head snapped toward the corner of the room. He sat in the shadows, the lycan who'd saved them. In the firelight, she could finally see him clearly. Brutal scars crossed his face and arms. His hair was black as midnight, pulled back from features that might have been handsome if they weren't so hard. He wore all black, and even sitting still, he radiated barely contained violence. 3 days, he said, as if reading her question. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. My healers said you'd lost too much blood, that you wouldn't wake. I told them they were wrong." Sarah's hand went instinctively to her daughter. "Who are you?" "Darius Bloodmoon." He leaned forward, and the firelight caught his face fully. "Lycan King of the Northern Territories." The room spun. Every wolf in 3 territories knew that name. Darius Bloodmoon, the Beast King, who'd united the Lycan packs through blood and conquest, who showed no mercy to his enemies, who hadn't taken a mate in the 10 years since he'd claimed his throne. "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Why save us?" He was quiet for a long moment, his amber eyes fixed on her and the baby. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost confused. "I don't know." Chapter 2. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through windows so tall they seemed to touch the sky. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then her daughter stirred beside her, and everything came rushing back. The snow, the blood, Marcus walking away, and the Lycan King watching from the shadows. She sat up slowly, her body protesting. Everything hurt, but it was a distant hurt, muffled by whatever medicines the healers had given her. Ilara, she'd named her daughter in those brief moments of consciousness after her grandmother, was sleeping peacefully in her cradle of pillows. The door opened without warning. Sarah grabbed a blanket, covering herself instinctively, but it wasn't Darius. A woman entered, tall and striking, with silver hair despite appearing no older than 40. She wore deep green robes and carried a tray laden with food. Her eyes, when they met Sarah's, were kind but assessing. "I'm Healer Marin," she said, setting the tray on a side table. "You gave us quite a scare, girl. I've been a healer for 60 years and I've never seen someone lose that much blood and survive." "Where am I?" Sarah's voice was rough from disuse. "Blood Moon Stronghold, the king's personal wing to be precise." Marin moved to check Ilara, her hands gentle as she examined the sleeping infant. "This little one is thriving. Strong lungs, good appetite. She's a fighter." "Like her mother," a deep voice said from the doorway. Darius filled the entrance, somehow making the massive doorframe seem small. In daylight, he was even more imposing. He wore black leather and dark wool, weapons strapped to his thighs and back. A king dressed for war, even in his own home. "Your Majesty?" Marin bowed her head. "I was just checking on your guests." "Guests?" The word seemed to amuse him. "Is that what we're calling them?" "What else would we call them?" Marin's tone was carefully neutral, but Sarah caught the edge beneath it. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't simple. Darius moved into the room with that predator's grace. "That depends on what the council decides. Leave us, Marin. I'll call if she needs you." The healer hesitated, glanced at Sarah, then nodded. "I'll be just down the hall." When the door closed, Sarah forced herself to meet Darius's eyes. "You said you were claiming us. What does that mean?" He pulled a chair close to the bed, not close enough to crowd her, but near enough to speak quietly. "Under ancient lycan law, when someone saves a life, they become responsible for it, the rite of salvation. It's old magic, older than most pack structures. By saving you and your daughter, I bound myself to your protection. I didn't ask for that. No, you asked me to let you die." His amber eyes held hers. "I refused." Sarah's hands twisted in the blanket. "I don't understand. Why would a lycan king care about a—" She stopped, the word worthless dying on her lips. Marcus's voice poisoning her thoughts even now. About what? Darius leaned forward slightly. An Omega who survived the impossible? A mother who gave birth alone in a blizzard, betrayed by her own mate, and still managed to bring her daughter into the world alive? Tell me, Sarah Montgomery, what exactly should I not care about? The way he said her name made something warm uncurl in her chest. She pushed it down, terrified. Lycans hate werewolves. Everyone knows that. Lycans are superior to werewolves in strength, yes, but I've never confused strength with worth. He stood, moved to the window. My council is less enlightened. They're in an uproar over my decision to bring you here, then send us away. No. The single word was absolute, final. You're under my protection now, both of you. That protection extends to housing, food, education, and safety. No one touches you without going through me first. Sarah's heart pounded. What do you want in return? He turned, and something flickered across his face. Surprise? You think this is a transaction? Everything is. Marcus had taught her that. Every kindness had a price. Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved back to the chair, sat down, and did something that shocked her. He let his formal posture drop, let her see exhaustion in the set of his shoulders. I'm 35 years old, he said quietly. I've been king for 10 years. I fought in 43 battles, survived 17 assassination attempts, and united territories that had been at war for centuries. I've made thousands of decisions, most of them brutal, most of them necessary. He looked at Ilara, sleeping peacefully, and in all that time, I've never once acted on impulse, until I found you in the snow. Why? When I figure that out, you'll be the first to know. The days developed a rhythm. Marin came every morning to check on them both. Servants brought meals, rich, nourishing food that made Sarah's healing body sing with gratitude. And Darius visited. Every day, without fail. He brought her books from his personal library, Rare texts on wolf recovery after trauma, on maternal health, on infant care. He never stayed long, never crowded her, but his presence filled the room even after he left. And with Ilara, he was transformed. Sarah watched, stunned, as the feared Beast King held her tiny daughter with absolute gentleness. He knew how to support her head, how to soothe her when she cried. Once, Sarah woke from a nap to find him walking the room with Ilara against his chest, humming something low and melodic while the baby slept. "Where did you learn to do that?" she'd asked. He'd looked up, caught in the act of tenderness. "My sister had a daughter before she died. I helped raise her until—" He'd stopped, and Sarah hadn't pushed. Some wounds were too deep for words, but it was agony, too. The mate bond with Marcus was dying. She could feel it withering inside her, a physical pain that made her gasp at random moments. The bond mark on her neck burned constantly, rejecting the connection that Marcus had already severed in his heart. And worse, infinitely worse, she felt something new stirring. When Darius entered the room, her wolf perked up. When he held Ilara, warmth flooded her chest. When his hand accidentally brushed hers while passing her a book, electricity sparked along her skin. No, she couldn't. She wouldn't. This was trauma, nothing more. Gratitude misunderstood as attraction. He'd saved her life. Of course she felt drawn to him. It meant nothing. On the 5th day, Maren came to examine Ilara more thoroughly. Sarah watched nervously as the healer checked the baby's reflexes, looked in her eyes, felt along her tiny spine. "She's perfect," Sarah said defensively. "I know she's small, but—" "She's not just perfect." Maren's voice was strange. "Sarah, has anyone explained lycan genetics to you?" No. Why?" Maren sat back, her expression troubled. "Lycans and werewolves can interbreed, but it's rare. And when it happens, the offspring usually shows markers from both parents, certain bone structure, eye colour, the way their wolf presents." She touched Ilara's tiny hand. "Your daughter has markers that shouldn't be there, dormant lycan traits." Sarah's blood went cold. "That's impossible. Marcus was a regular werewolf. I'm a werewolf. There's no lycan blood in either of us. Then it shouldn't be possible, but it is." Maren met her eyes. "If the council discovers this, they'll demand blood tests. They'll want to determine paternity. And depending on what they find, they'll take her from me. Worse, they might accuse you of lying, of hiding a lycan affair. It could start a war, Sarah. The political implications of a werewolf omega bearing a child with lycan markers." Maren shook her head. "Keep this quiet. Tell no one, not even the king." But Sarah saw the truth in her eyes, especially not the king. That afternoon, Darius brought broth himself, instead of having it sent. Rich bone broth with herbs that warmed her from the inside out. "You need to regain your strength," he said, watching her drink. "Maren says you're healing well, but you're still too thin." "I've always been thin. Omegas usually are." "You've always been starved." His voice went hard. "There's a difference." Sarah set down the bowl. "You keep doing this, being kind, bringing me things. But your council hates that I'm here. I heard them this morning, shouting in the halls. They want me gone. They don't give the orders. I do. Why?" She couldn't stop herself from asking again. "Why fight your own people for us?" Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed his thumb across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "Because when I found you in the snow, dying, your first thought wasn't for yourself. It was for her. You apologized to your unborn daughter for not being able to save her. And I thought—" His voice roughened. "I thought that anyone capable of that much love deserved to live, deserved to be protected, deserved better than a mate who poisoned her and left her to die." Tears burned Sarah's eyes. "I'm broken. The mate bond is dying. And it hurts, and I don't know how to make it stop. It stops when you choose to let go." I don't know how. Yes, you do. He withdrew his hand, stood. You're stronger than you think, Sarah Montgomery. You just haven't realized it yet. He was at the door when she called out, Darius? He turned, and she saw surprise flicker across his face. She'd never used his name before. Thank you, for everything. Something in his expression softened. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Why? What happens tomorrow? But he was already gone. She found out the next morning when shouting erupted in the corridors outside her room. Sarah was nursing Ilara when the doors burst open. Guards rushed in, followed by Darius, his face thunderous. Behind him came a man she'd never seen. Tall, scarred, with eyes like chips of ice. He wore a commander's insignia. Your Majesty, this is madness, the commander was saying. You can't possibly— Commander Cale, stand down. Darius's voice could have cut steel. She's under my protection. She's a security risk, a wolf from a nothing pack, showing up at our borders with a convenient sob story. Kyle. One word, a warning. The commander, Kyle, turned those ice chip eyes on Sarah. I grew up with Darius, fought beside him, bled with him, and I'm telling you, girl, if you're a spy, if you're here to harm him or this stronghold, I will end you myself. Sarah clutched Ilara closer. I'm not enough. Darius moved between them, a wall of muscle and menace. She's been through hell, she's recovering, and you will treat her with the respect due to anyone under my protection, or you'll answer to me. Are we clear? Kyle's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. Good. Now tell me why you're barging into her chambers like— Because there are werewolves at the gates. Kyle's voice was grim. From Silverpine Pack, led by Beta Marcus Thornwood and Alpha Reeves. They're demanding her return, claiming you've committed an act of war by kidnapping a mated Omega. The room spun. No, 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 no. Darius turned to her slowly. Marcus Thornwood is your mate? She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He's her bonded mate, Cale said. The mark is still on her neck, fading but visible. By werewolf law, she belongs to him, and by taking her, you've violated pack sovereignty. She was dying. Darius's voice had gone dangerously quiet. He left her to die. He claims she ran off during the hunt, got lost. He's been searching for her for a week. Liar. Marcus was a liar. But would anyone believe her word over a beta's? Darius crouched in front of her chair, bringing himself to her eye level. Sarah, look at me. She forced herself to meet those amber eyes. Do you want to go back to him? Such a simple question. The answer should have been simple too, but the mate bond, dying as it was, still had hooks in her, still whispered that Marcus was hers, that she'd promised forever, that maybe he'd had reasons for what he did, maybe, if she just tried harder, was better, stronger. No, the word tore out of her. No, I don't. Then you won't. He stood. Cale, have them brought to the throne room. If Marcus wants to make demands, he can make them to my face. Darius, this could start a war. Then it starts. He looked back at Sarah. Get dressed. Something formal. You're coming with me. I can't. Ilara. Maren will watch her. You need to face him, Sarah. You need to end this, or he'll never stop coming for you. The throne room was massive, all stone and shadows, lit by torches that cast dancing light across the walls. Sarah stood beside Darius's throne, Cale on his other side, trying not to shake. She'd dressed in the gown Maren provided, deep blue wool, simple but well made. Her hair was braided back, the mate mark visible on her neck. Let them see. Let them see what Marcus had done. The doors opened. 24 Silverpine wolves filed in, led by a man Sarah recognized as Alpha Reeves. He was older, greying, with sharp eyes that took in everything. And beside him, Marcus. Her mate looked exactly as she remembered. Handsome, confident. Completely unbothered by the fact that he'd left her to die a week ago. Their eyes met across the room. Marcus smiled. that charming smile that had first won her heart. Sarah's wolf snarled in her chest. Alpha Reeves. Darius's voice echoed through the throne room. You've requested an audience. Speak. Reeves bowed, the gesture just shy of mocking. Your Majesty, thank you for receiving us. We've come for one of our own, Sarah Montgomery, bonded mate to Beta Marcus Thornwood. She went missing during a hunt, and we've been searching for her desperately. Imagine our relief when we heard she'd been found, safe, by the great Lycan King himself. The words were pretty. The meaning underneath was clear. Give her back, or else. Sarah Montgomery was not lost, Darius said calmly. She was abandoned, left to die in the snow while giving birth, by the very man who now claims to want her back. Marcus stepped forward. That's a lie. I would never. You left her? Darius didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You poisoned her with wolfsbane for weeks, hoping she'd miscarry. When that failed, you took her into the woods during her labour and walked away while she bled out. These are facts. These are the delusions of a traumatized Omega, Marcus said smoothly. She had a difficult birth. The pain, the fear. It's not unusual for Omegas to become confused after such trauma, to blame others for their own mistakes. Sarah's nails dug into her palms. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. Is that true, Sarah? Darius turned to her. Are you confused? Every wolf in the room was staring at her, judging, waiting. Marcus caught her eye, mouthed one word, please. The mate bond pulled. Come back, come home, forgive, forget. Sarah looked at her mate, really looked at him, at the man who'd held her at night and poisoned her by day, who'd promised forever and delivered death. Then she looked at Darius, the king who'd saved her for no reason, who held her daughter with gentle hands, who'd asked her what she wanted and actually listened to the answer. I'm not confused, she said clearly. Marcus left me to die. He admitted it to my face. He said I was defective, that our daughter was defective, that he had a better mate waiting. Gasps rippled through the Silverpine wolves. Marcus's face went hard. She's lying, he said flatly. She's trying to... I'm not finished. Sarah stepped forward, her voice stronger now. He poisoned me, weakened me. Hoped I'd lose the baby quietly so he could bond with Alpha Thornwood's daughter. When that didn't work, he took me into the woods and walked away while I begged him for help. This is ridiculous. The right of salvation has been invoked, Darius said, cutting Marcus off. Sarah Montgomery and her daughter are under my protection. They will remain here for as long as they choose. She doesn't get to choose. Marcus's composure cracked. She's my mate, my Omega. The bond mark is on her neck. She belongs to me. Do I? Sarah's voice was deadly quiet. Do I belong to you, Marcus? The way property belongs to someone? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She was moving now, walking down the steps toward him, fury burning through her fear. When you left me bleeding in the snow, when you told me I was defective, when you said our daughter was a mistake, what exactly did you mean by all of that? Marcus lunged forward. Kyle and 3 other Lycan guards intercepted him instantly, holding him back. But Marcus's eyes were wild now, the mask completely gone. You're mine, he snarled. The bond says you're mine. You can't just... Yes, I can. Sarah reached up, touched the mark on her neck. It burned, the bond screaming at her to stop, to submit, to accept. I, Sarah Montgomery, formally reject Marcus Thornwood as my mate. I sever our bond. I deny our connection. I choose freedom over bondage, truth over lies, and life over death. The words were ritual, old and binding. Every wolf knew them. Marcus went pale. No. Sarah, no, don't. I have no mate, Sarah said, looking him dead in the eye. Not anymore. The bond broke. Pain exploded through her body. 1,000 knives cutting her from the inside. The mate mark on her neck burned like acid, like fire, like the end of the world. She heard herself scream. distantly, as if from very far away. Then she was falling, and the last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Darius, catching her as she collapsed, his face fierce and protective and absolutely furious, as he held her against his chest and told Marcus Thornwood exactly what would happen if he ever came near her again. Chapter 3. The pain was everywhere. Sarah had thought childbirth was agony, had thought betrayal hurt worse than any physical wound. But breaking a mate bond, severing the mystical connection that bound two souls, was like being torn apart from the inside out. She screamed until her voice gave out, thrashed until strong hands held her down. Burned with fever that should have killed her, and through it all, Darius was there. "I've got you," he said, over and over, his deep voice cutting through the delirium. "You're safe. I've got you." On the second night, when the fever spiked so high that Maren feared for her life, Darius did something that made his entire council protest. He used lycan healing magic. Sarah was barely conscious when he climbed into the bed beside her, pulling her against his chest. His skin burned even hotter than hers, but it was a different heat, clean, powerful, ancient. "This is forbidden, Your Majesty," Maren said quietly. "Sharing your strength with a werewolf. The council will see it as—" "I don't care what they see it as." Darius's arms tightened around Sarah. "She's dying. I won't watch another—" He stopped, started again. "I won't watch her die." Sarah felt it the moment his power began to flow into her. Gold light, warm and electric, pouring from his body into hers. It hurt at first, her werewolf magic recoiling from the lycan energy. But then something inside her shifted, accepted, and the pain began to ease. She slept in his arms and dreamed. The dreams were fragmented, disjointed, not hers. A boy, maybe 7 years old, with Darius's amber eyes, hiding behind a pillar in a grand throne room. His father, older, harder, cruel, stood over a woman on her knees. "Please," the woman begged. She was small, delicate, with dark hair and a mate mark on her neck. "He's your son. How can you do this in front of him?" "He needs to learn," the king's voice was ice. "Needs to understand that weakness is unforgivable. You mated a common wolf, diluted the royal bloodline. And for what? Love?" He spat the word like poison. "I loved you once," the woman whispered, "before you became this. And I loved you, until you proved yourself defective." He raised his hand, claws extending. "Let this be a lesson to our son. Never let sentiment cloud judgment." The boy behind the pillar tried to run forward. Strong arms held him back. Guards, following orders. He screamed as his father killed his mother, screamed until his voice broke, until there was nothing left but silent tears and a hatred that would burn for decades. "Remember this, Darius," his father said, turning to look directly at the boy. "This is what happens when a king shows mercy to weakness." Sarah woke gasping, tears streaming down her face. The room was dark, except for firelight. Darius still held her, but his eyes were open now, staring at nothing. "Your mother?" she whispered. "I saw—" "My memories bleed through during healing magic." His voice was flat, emotionless. "I should have warned you. He made you watch. He made me learn." Darius shifted, moving to rise, but Sarah's hand caught his wrist. "And that's why you saved me. Why you fought your counsel. Because she was an Omega, and he killed her for it." "She was weak," Darius said, the words automatic, drilled into him. Then his jaw clenched. "No, that's what he taught me. What I believed for years. Until I became king and finally saw the truth. She wasn't weak. She was the strongest person in that room. Strong enough to love someone beneath her station. Strong enough to beg for her son's sake, not her own. Strong enough to face death with dignity while my father raged like a coward." Sarah sat up slowly, her body still aching, but the worst of the pain gone. How old were you when you stopped believing his lies? 25, the day I challenged him for the throne and won. Something dark crossed Darius's face. I made sure he understood his mistake before he died. Made sure he knew that everything he'd taught me about strength and weakness was backwards, that the only weak one in our family was him. And you've spent 10 years proving him wrong. I've spent 10 years trying to be worthy of her memory. He finally looked at Sarah, and the raw grief in his eyes stole her breath. When I found you in the snow, dying, your daughter fighting to be born, all I could see was her. All I could hear was her begging him to spare her son. And I thought, not again. Never again. Sarah didn't think, just moved forward and wrapped her arms around him, holding him the way he'd held her through the worst of the pain. For a moment, he stayed rigid. Then his arms came around her, and he buried his face in her hair, and they held each other while the fire burned low, and the past hurt less than it had for 30 years. By the end of the week, Sarah could stand without help, walk without collapsing, hold Ilara without her arm shaking. The mate mark on her neck had faded to a scar, still visible, but pale and lifeless. The bond was truly gone. And while part of her mourned what might have been, a larger part felt free for the first time since Marcus had claimed her. Darius visited less frequently now that she was recovering, but his presence still filled the stronghold. She heard him in the corridors giving orders, felt him nearby even when she couldn't see him, like her wolf was constantly aware of where he was. It should have frightened her. Instead, it felt right in a way that her bond with Marcus never had. Maren noticed. You're healing faster than expected. The lycan magic took well. Is that unusual? For a werewolf? Very. The healer's eyes were knowing. Usually there's rejection, sickness for weeks after. But your body accepted his power like it was meant to be there. Sarah changed the subject before Maren could say more. On the 8th day, Cale came to her chambers. He still looked at her with suspicion, but something in his expression had shifted. Less hostility, more concern. The Silverpine wolves haven't left, he said without preamble. Alpha Reeves has camped outside the stronghold with 50 warriors. He's calling for a council of alphas to challenge the king's claim on you. Sarah's stomach dropped. A council of alphas? Ancient werewolf law. When there's a dispute between packs, the ruling alphas meet to decide. If Reeves gets enough support, they could demand Darius hand you over. Kyle's jaw clenched. It's a political nightmare, and it's not the worst news. What could be worse? He handed her a stack of papers. Letters, she realized. Correspondence between Marcus and Alpha Reeves's daughter, Victoria. Sarah read them with growing horror. Love letters. Explicit promises. Plans for their future together, once Marcus was free of the Omega burden. They've been together for over a year, Kyle said quietly. He was courting her while mated to you. And she's pregnant now, Sarah, 3 months along. The room spun. That's why he needed me gone. Not just because I was weak or defective, but because she was carrying his child, his real heir. He spread rumours throughout the packs that Ilara isn't his daughter, that you were unfaithful, that the baby could be anyone's. Cale's expression was grim. He's destroying your reputation to cover his own betrayal, and it's working. The other packs are questioning why the Lycan King would protect a faithless Omega. Rage, white-hot and cleansing, burned through Sarah's chest. I want to testify at the council. I want to face them all and tell them exactly what Marcus did. That's brave. It's also dangerous. Kyle studied her. These are werewolf alphas. They don't value Omegas the way Lycans do. They might not believe you. Might side with Marcus just to spite Darius. I don't care. I won't hide while he lies about me, about my daughter. Something like respect flickered in Kyle's eyes. The council meets in 3 days. I'll make sure you're ready. The attack came that night. Sarah had just finished nursing Ilara when she heard it. The whisper of movement in the shadows. Her wolf surged, screaming danger. She grabbed Ilara and rolled off the bed just as a blade slashed through the space where she'd been. The assassin was fast, dressed in black, face covered, but the scent was unmistakable. Werewolf. "Help!" Sarah's scream tore through the room. "Someone!" The assassin lunged. Sarah dodged, clutching Ilara, but she was still weak, still recovering. The blade caught her shoulder and she cried out. Then the door exploded inward. Darius moved like death itself. He caught the assassin mid-strike, his claws extending, and there was a sickening crunch as he broke the attacker's neck in one swift motion. The body crumpled. "Sarah!" Darius was across the room in an instant, his hands on her shoulders, checking for wounds. "Are you—" Ilara's scream cut him off. Blood. There was blood on the baby's blanket. The assassin's blade must have caught her when Sarah dodged. "No, no, no!" Sarah unwrapped the blanket with shaking hands. A shallow cut across Ilara's tiny arm, but the blade had been silver. Silver burned werewolves, burned lycans, could kill an infant. Ilara's screams intensified, her little body convulsing. "Give her to me." Darius took the baby with steady hands, his face set in grim determination. "Maren, I need Maren now." But his healing magic was already activating. Sarah could see it. Gold light pouring from his hands into Ilara's tiny body. The baby's screams changed pitch, from pain to something else, something impossible. Ilara's eyes flashed gold, not amber, like a normal lycan. Pure gold, ancient and powerful, the colour of old magic and forgotten bloodlines. The room flooded with people, guards, Maren, KL. All of them stopping dead at the sight of the baby in Darius's arms, her eyes blazing with lycan light, her DNA responding to his power like calling to like. "That's not possible," Kyle breathed. "She's a werewolf pup. She can't—" "She can." Maren's voice was shaken. "She is. By the gods, she's responding to lycan healing magic." Sarah's world tilted. "I don't understand." "Blood tests, now." Kyle was already moving, calling orders. "Get me a lab. Get me equipment. I need to know what I'm seeing." They waited in Darius's private study while Kyle ran the tests. Sarah held Ilara, who had calmed once the silver was neutralized, now sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around her. Maren had checked them both. Sarah's shoulder wound was minor, already healing. Ilara's cut was completely gone, healed by Darius's magic as if it had never existed. But those eyes, those impossible gold eyes. "The assassin was sent by Marcus," Darius said quietly. He stood by the window, his back rigid with barely contained fury. "I recognized the scent, Silverpine Pack." "He tried to kill us." Sarah's voice was hollow. "His own daughter. She's not his daughter." They both turned. Kyle stood in the doorway, holding papers, his expression stunned. "What?" Sarah stood up, clutching Ilara closer. "What do you mean she's not—" "I ran every test, 3 times. Kyle crossed to them, laid the papers on the desk. "Ilara's DNA shows lycan markers, not werewolf. She's a natural-born hybrid, Sarah. Half werewolf, half lycan." The room spun. "That's impossible. I've only been with Marcus. Only ever—" Marcus knew. Darius's voice was deadly quiet. He was staring at the papers, something clicking into place. The wolfsbane wasn't to kill the baby. It was to suppress lycan DNA from manifesting. He knew she wasn't his, knew what she was. But how? Sarah's mind was racing. "I've never been with a lycan, never even met one before you. This doesn't make sense." She stopped, a memory sharp and disjointed. A year ago. Marcus bringing her to what he called a special pack ceremony. She'd been nervous, new to the pack, desperate to fit in, to be worthy of her beta mate. "Drink," Marcus had said, handing her wine. "It's tradition. Everyone participates." The wine had been sweet, too sweet. And after the first glass, everything had gotten hazy. She remembered dancing, Remembered Marcus's hand on her back, guiding her somewhere. Remembered a room with candles and shadows, and nothing. She'd woken up the next morning in Marcus's bed, sore and confused, with gaps in her memory that he'd laughed off. "You had too much wine, love. Got a bit wild. Don't worry about it." "Oh, gods!" Sarah's voice cracked. "The ceremony, the wine. I blacked out, and I thought I'd just drunk too much, but he drugged you." Darius's words were made of ice and murder. "Took you somewhere, let someone." His hands clenched into fists. "I will end him." Slowly. "Who?" Sarah's tears fell on Ilara's sleeping face. "Who is her father? Why would Marcus do this?" Kyle's expression was grim. "This kind of ceremony, drugging an omega, bringing in another male, it's usually for breeding purposes, when a male can't produce heirs himself or wants to secure a bloodline without admitting his own weakness." He paused. "Marcus might have been sterile, or he wanted a powerful child that appeared to be his own. But a lycan," Sarah shook her head. "Why would a lycan agree to this? Why wouldn't I remember?" "Some lycans can manipulate memory," Maren said quietly. She'd been silent until now, but her face was troubled. "It's a rare gift, usually only found in the oldest bloodlines. If someone wanted to father a child without the mother knowing, without complications." Darius turned away, his shoulders rigid. "Kyle, find out who was in Silverpine territory a year ago. Any lycan visitors, any unexplained presences. I want names." "Your Majesty, now." Kale left, understanding in his eyes. Sarah sat down heavily, Ilara still in her arms. "She's not Marcus's daughter. She's not even fully werewolf. And I don't know who her father is." A broken laugh escaped her. "No wonder Marcus wanted us dead. We're living proof of something. Something he needed hidden." "You're living proof that you survived the impossible." Darius crouched in front of her, his hands covering hers where they held Ilara. "That you gave birth to a miracle despite everything he did to stop you. That you're stronger than any of them know." "I'm a victim." The words tasted like ash. Used. Manipulated. "I don't even have my own memories." "You're a survivor." His amber eyes held hers, fierce and certain. "And I will find out who did this. I will make them answer for it. But first, we keep you and Ilara safe. First we get through the council, then we burn down everyone who hurt you." Sarah looked down at her daughter. Ilara slept peacefully, unaware of the storm around her. Half lycan, half werewolf. A child who shouldn't exist, born from violation and manipulation, but perfect anyway, innocent anyway. "I'll testify," Sarah said quietly. "I'll tell the council everything, and then—" She met Darius's eyes. "Then I want to know the truth, all of it, no matter how much it hurts." "You'll have it," it was a vow, "I promise you." That night, after everyone left, after Maren gave her something to help her sleep, Sarah lay in bed and tried to remember the ceremony, the wine, the gaps in her memory. She closed her eyes and let herself sink into that night, into the fragments that remained. Marcus's hand on her back. "Just through here, love. You'll like this." A room, large, formal. Other wolves watching, their eyes predatory. "She's perfect," someone said. A male voice, deep and cultured. "You chose well, Thornwood." "The debt is paid then?" Marcus's voice, eager, desperate. "Once she conceives, then we'll consider your family's obligations satisfied." Hands on her skin. Not Marcus's. Larger, rougher. She'd tried to pull away, but the drug made her body heavy, unresponsive. "Don't fight," the voice said, close to her ear. "You won't remember anyway, and you'll give him a child that will make his fortune, a perfect trade." Then nothing. Darkness. And waking up believing she'd simply had too much wine and made love to her mate. Sarah's eyes snapped open, her heart racing. A trade. A debt. Marcus had traded her, had let someone use her to pay off his family's obligations, and she'd conceived, had gotten pregnant that night probably, had carried a child for 9 months, believing it was Marcus's, never knowing the truth. "Who are you?" she whispered to the darkness. "Who is Ilara's father?" But the memories gave her no answer. Just that voice, cultured and cold, making a deal while she lay drugged and helpless. Somewhere in the stronghold, someone knew. Someone had been in Silverpine territory a year ago. Someone with old bloodline powers, able to manipulate memory and father hybrid children. Someone who might be coming back to finish what Marcus had started. Sarah held Ilara closer and waited for dawn, and tried not to think about the fact that her daughter's father was a stranger who'd bought her like property and left her with nothing but gaps in her memory and a child who glowed with ancient golden light. Chapter 4. The assassin had been locked in the stronghold's holding cells for 2 days when Sarah demanded to see him. "Absolutely not," Cale said flatly. "You're not going down there." "He tried to kill my daughter." Sarah's voice was steel. "I have a right to face him. You have a right to stay safe while we handle—" "Cale." Darius appeared in the doorway of his study, where they'd been arguing. "Let her go." "Your Majesty, she's not trained for interrogation." "No, but she deserves answers." Darius moved to Sarah's side, a silent show of support. "And I'll be with her the entire time." The cells were deep beneath the stronghold, carved into bedrock. The air was cold and damp, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows. The assassin sat chained to a stone wall, his face bruised from Kyle's earlier interrogations. He looked up when they entered, and something flickered in his eyes. Fear. "Please," he whispered. "I was just following orders." "Whose orders?" Darius's voice could have cut glass. The assassin's eyes darted between them. "I can't. If I tell you, they'll kill me." "They're going to kill you anyway." Sarah stepped forward, surprised by her own calm. "The question is whether you die quickly or slowly. Whether you die with some shred of honor, or as a coward who murdered infants for coin." The man flinched. "I didn't want to hurt the baby, I swear." "But Alpha Reeves said—" He stopped, realizing what he'd admitted. Reeves. Darius exchanged a glance with Kyle. "Keep talking." The story came out in broken pieces. How Alpha Reeves had been running secret operations for years. How he'd been capturing lycans who strayed too close to his territory, keeping them prisoner. How he'd been using them in what he called ceremonies, forcing them to father children with high-ranking she-wolves who were drugged and unaware. Sarah's stomach turned. Why? Why would he do that? Hybrids. The assassin's voice dropped to a whisper. He wanted to create an army. Lycan-wolf hybrids with the strength of lycans and the pack bonds of werewolves. Creatures powerful enough to challenge even the Lycan king. Silence fell in the cell, broken only by the drip of water somewhere in the darkness. "How many?" Darius's voice was dangerously quiet. "How many women? How many Lycans?" "I don't know exact numbers. Dozens, maybe. The ceremonies happen every few months. The women never remember. Reeves has a witch who does memory spells. The Lycans." The assassin swallowed hard. "The Lycans don't have that mercy. They remember everything." Sarah's knees went weak. Darius caught her, his arm around her waist, holding her upright. "Marcus knew," she whispered. "He knew what was happening to me. Marcus was Reeves's right hand in the program. He offered you up himself, said you were perfect, young, fertile, desperate to please." The assassin's expression held something like pity. Reeves paid him well, promised him a place in the new order once the hybrid army was ready. But when your daughter started showing Lycan traits even in the womb, Marcus panicked. She was supposed to pass as a regular wolf pup until she was old enough to control her power. Instead, she was too strong, too obviously different. He tried to kill her before anyone found out. Rage, white-hot and absolute, burned through Sarah's shock. "Where is Reeves keeping them? The prisoners? The other women?" "I can't tell you that." Darius moved so fast, the assassin didn't have time to flinch. His hand closed around the man's throat, claws extending just enough to draw blood. "You can," Darius said softly, "and you will, or I'll make what Kyle did to you look like a massage." The assassin broke, gave them coordinates, described the compound, heavily guarded, built into a mountain, designed to be impenetrable. When they left the cells, Sarah had to stop halfway up the stairs, her whole body shaking. "He sold me," she said, her voice breaking, "like livestock, like property, and I never knew, never even suspected." Darius turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You survived. You escaped. And now we're going to burn his entire operation to the ground and free everyone he's trapped." "Will we?" Sarah looked up at him. "Or will we walk into another trap? Everyone keeps underestimating them, Darius. Marcus, Reeves. They've been 3 steps ahead this entire time. Not anymore." His amber eyes were fierce, not with what we know now. The war room filled quickly once word spread. Kyle brought maps and tactical plans. Maren came with medical supplies for the rescued prisoners, and warriors, dozens of them, volunteered for the raid. But it was the young man who appeared in the doorway, his face pale and his hands shaking, who changed everything. "Your Majesty." He bowed, but his eyes went to Sarah. "My name is Tobias Ashford. I'm a warrior in your guard. And I think I might be your daughter's father." The room went silent. Sarah stared at him. He was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a scar across his jaw. Nothing about him seemed threatening. Nothing suggested the monster she'd been imagining. "Sit," Darius commanded, his voice carefully neutral. "Tell us everything." Tobias sat, his hands clasped so tight his knuckles were white. 2 years ago, I was on patrol near Silverpine Territory. I got separated from my unit during a storm. When I came to, I was in chains in a cell. Reeves had me. Had others too, lycans he'd captured over the years. "How many others?" Kyle leaned forward. 8 when I arrived. More came. "Some died." Tobias's voice cracked. "The ceremonies, they'd drug us first, make us compliant, but not unconscious. We knew what was happening, knew they were forcing us to." He stopped, breathing hard. I tried to resist. The first time, I refused. They beat me. Told me they'd kill me slowly if I didn't cooperate. Told me the women were already unconscious, that I was just a means to an end, that it didn't matter. Sarah's heart broke for him, for both of them. 2 victims in Reeves's sick game. "The timing matches," Maren said quietly. She'd been running calculations. "If you were there 2 years ago, and Sarah's ceremony was about a year ago." "I was there." Tobias looked at Sarah, his eyes full of shame and grief. "They brought me to a ceremony around that time. A woman, small, dark-haired, with the prettiest green eyes even though she was drugged out of her mind. I tried to look away, tried to make it quick, make it as gentle as I could given." He swallowed hard. "I never knew if there was a child. Never knew if any of the ceremonies resulted in pregnancy. But when I heard about Ilara's DNA, about her age, about the timing—" "DNA test," Darius said immediately. "Now." The results came back within hours. Maren's expression said everything before she even spoke the words. "Tobias Ashford is Ilara's biological father. The markers match perfectly." Sarah sat down hard, Ilara in her arms. The baby cooed, reaching for her mother's face, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in the room. "What does this mean?" Sarah asked. "For her, for us." "The Ashford line is noble," Kyle said slowly. "Not royal, but old and respected. Which means Ilara has a legitimate claim to a place in lycan society. She's not just a hybrid. She's a blood moon citizen by birth." "She's also proof of Reeves's crimes," Darius added, "living evidence of what he's been doing, which makes her even more dangerous to him." Tobias had stayed for the results. Now he looked at Sarah with something like desperate hope. I know I have no right to ask anything. No right to even speak to you after what I did, even though I didn't choose it. But could I see her? Just once? Sarah studied him, this young man who'd been as much a victim as she had, who'd tried to resist, tried to make it bearable, had carried the trauma of it for 2 years, not knowing if he'd fathered children through violence. Slowly, she stood and crossed to him. Hold out your arms. Tobias did carefully, as if afraid she'd change her mind. Sarah placed Ilara in his arms, watched as his face crumpled with emotion. She's beautiful, he whispered. Perfect. She is. Sarah's voice was soft. And she's innocent in all of this. We both are. You are. I'm so sorry. Tears tracked down his face. I'm so sorry for what happened to you, what they made me do. You didn't do anything, Sarah said firmly. Reeves did. Marcus did. The witch who stole my memories did. You were a victim, just like me. And if you want to know her, to be part of her life, we'll figure it out. Hope flared in his eyes. Really? She deserves to know where she comes from, to know her father chose her, even if he didn't choose the circumstances of her birth. Darius was watching them with an unreadable expression. Later, after Tobias left and Ilara was sleeping, he found Sarah in the garden. That was remarkably generous of you, he said quietly. It was the right thing to do. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself against the evening chill. He's not the enemy. He's another survivor. You're remarkable. The words were simple, but the way Darius said them made Sarah's breath catch. The way you've handled all of this, the betrayal, the violation, the revelations. Most people would have broken by now. I did break, in the snow, when Marcus walked away. Sarah looked up at him. You put me back together. No, you put yourself back together. I just held the pieces until you were ready. They were standing close now, close enough that Sarah could feel the heat radiating from his body. Her wolf was pacing, interested, pulling her toward him. Darius, She stopped, started again. I feel something. Between us. Something that shouldn't be possible. A mate bond. His voice was rough. I feel it too. But you were already mated. You told me, when your sister died, you said, I was bonded, a century ago, to a female from a neighbouring territory. Darius looked away. She died in the same attack that killed my sister and niece. I thought lycans only bond once in a lifetime. When she died, I thought that was it, that I'd spend eternity alone. And now? Now I feel a pull to you that I haven't felt in 100 years. Stronger even than what I had before. He turned back to her, vulnerability naked in his face. I don't understand it. It shouldn't be possible, but I can't deny what I feel. Sarah's heart raced. I'm terrified. Marcus. I'm not Marcus. The words were gentle but firm. I will never be Marcus. I will never betray you. Never hurt you. Never leave you to face danger alone. I swear it on my mother's memory, on my crown, on everything I am. I want to believe that. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes, but trusting a mate bond again. Trusting anyone again. Then don't trust the bond. Trust me. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hand. Trust what you see me do, not what you feel through magic. Trust that I've proven myself every day since I found you. Sarah leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. I'm so tired of being afraid. Then let me be afraid for you. Let me carry that burden. His thumb brushed away a tear. You've been strong for so long, Sarah. Let me be strong for you now. She opened her eyes, met his amber gaze, and saw nothing but sincerity. Okay. I'll try to trust this. To trust you. She took a shaky breath, but slowly. I need to go slowly. We'll go at whatever pace you need. He smiled, and it transformed his usually stern face. "We have time." They didn't have time. The raid was planned for 3 days later. A strike team of 20 lycans, all volunteers, all willing to risk their lives to free the prisoners and shut down Reeves's operation. Sarah insisted on coming. "I know the layout from the assassin's description. I can identify the ceremony room, help find the women." "Absolutely not," Kyle said. "You're not trained for combat. I'm the only one who's actually been there, and I'm not letting you go without me." Darius had been silent during the argument. Now he spoke. "She comes. But she stays in the rear guard with Marin's medical team. She identifies locations. We do the fighting." It wasn't perfect, but Sarah agreed. Tobias volunteered immediately. "I can identify the holding cells, help free the other lycans." The night before the raid, Sarah couldn't sleep. She checked on Ilara a dozen times, kissed her daughter's forehead, whispered promises that she'd come back. Darius found her in the nursery just before dawn. "Second thoughts?" "Thousands of them." Sarah turned to him. "But I have to do this, have to face them, have to help stop them from hurting anyone else." "I know." He moved closer. "Which is why I'm telling you now. If anything goes wrong, if things get dangerous, you run. You get out and you get back to Ilara, understand?" "Darius, promise me, Sarah. Promise me you'll survive." She looked into his eyes and saw the fear there, the same fear she carried for him. "Only if you promise the same thing." "Done." He pulled her close, held her against his chest, and they stood there as dawn broke, both knowing that promises made before battle were the easiest to make and the hardest to keep. They approached Reeves's compound at dusk, using the fading light as cover. The building was exactly as the assassin described, a fortress built into a mountain with guard towers and reinforced walls. Too quiet. Kyle signaled the concern. Darius nodded, motioning for the team to proceed with caution. They were 50 yards from the entrance when Sarah felt it, a burning sensation in her abdomen, like fire spreading through her veins. She gasped, stumbled. "Sarah?" Darius turned, but she couldn't answer, couldn't move. Her body was locking up, muscles seizing. Then her hand, not her own hand, moving without her permission, reached for the silver blade at her belt. "No," she whispered, tried to scream it. "No, I can't." But her body wasn't listening. The blade came up, and she was moving toward Darius, her movements jerky like a puppet on strings. "It's a trap." Cale's shout came too late. Lights blazed from the compound. Warriors poured out, dozens of them, surrounding the lycan strike team. And Sarah kept walking toward Darius, the blade raised, tears streaming down her face as she fought against the invisible control. "The tracker," Tobias breathed in horror. "Oh gods, Marcus implanted a tracker." "During your medical checks," Reeves's voice boomed from speakers somewhere. "My dear Sarah, did you really think I'd let a valuable asset like you escape without insurance? That chip in your abdomen isn't just tracking your location, it's connected to your nervous system. I control you now, and you're going to kill the Lycan King for me." "Sarah, fight it." Darius had his hands up, not defending himself, just watching her with anguished eyes. "Don't let him control you." "I'm trying." The words came out strangled, her hand thrust forward. Darius dodged, but barely. The Lycan warriors engaged with Reeves's forces. Battle erupted around them, claws and fangs and weapons clashing. And Sarah kept attacking Darius, her body a weapon she couldn't control, watching in horror as the man she was beginning to love refused to fight back, refused to hurt her even as she tried to kill him. "Please," she sobbed. "Darius, stop me, knock me out, something." But he just kept dodging, kept looking at her with those amber eyes full of trust and grief, and she knew with terrible certainty, that he'd let her kill him before he'd raise a hand against her. "Your Majesty," Kyle fought his way towards them. "We're surrounded. We need to—" Sarah's blade finally connected, slicing across Darius's arm. Not deep, but enough. Enough to draw blood. And above them, on the compound walls, Alpha Reeves appeared, smiling like the devil himself. "Welcome to your execution, Lycan King. I'm so glad you could make it." Epilogue. 5 years later, the spring festival at Blood Moon Stronghold was in full swing, and Sarah couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this light. Children raced through the gardens, their laughter echoing off the ancient stone walls. Lycan pups and wolf pups playing together, something that would have been unthinkable 6 years ago. But many things that had once seemed impossible were now simply life. "Mama, watch me." Sarah turned to see Alara scaling the garden wall with the fearless confidence of a 5-year-old who'd been climbing since she could walk. Her daughter's dark hair, so like Sarah's own, flew wild in the breeze, and when she reached the top and turned to wave, her eyes flashed that distinctive gold. "Very impressive, little wolf," Sarah called. "Now get down before your father has a heart attack." "Which father?" Alara asked, grinning. "Both of them." As if summoned, Tobias appeared around the corner, laughing as he jogged toward the wall. "Ellie, we talked about this. Garden walls are not mountains." "But I'm practicing." "Papa Darius said I need to practice if I'm going to lead expeditions someday. Papa Darius says a lot of things." Tobias reached up, and Alara jumped into his arms without hesitation, trusting completely that he'd catch her. He always did. Sarah watched them together, warmth blooming in her chest. The arrangement they'd created, Tobias as Ilara's biological father, present and loving but not trying to replace anyone, had worked better than she'd dared hope. He visited often, brought gifts on holidays, taught Ilara about her Lycan heritage, and he'd found his own healing in the process, building a relationship with his daughter that honoured both the trauma of her conception and the miracle of her existence. "She gets that fearlessness from you, you know," a deep voice said behind her. Sarah leaned back into Darius's embrace as his arms came around her waist, his chin resting on her head. Even after 4 years of being properly mated, after the rescue, after the battle, after everything, the rightness of being in his arms still made her breath catch. "I was never fearless," she murmured. "No, you were terrified, but you did the brave thing anyway." His lips brushed her temple. That's true courage. The rescue itself had become legend in the territory. How Kyle had tackled Sarah to the ground when she couldn't stop attacking. How Maren had cut the tracking chip out right there on the battlefield while Sarah screamed. How Darius had led the freed Lycans, including 6 who'd been prisoners for years, in a counterattack that had decimated Reeves's forces. Alpha Reeves himself had fled, but not far enough. Darius had tracked him personally, and the confrontation had been brief, messy, final. Marcus had been captured alive, tried before a council of alphas, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Victoria had lost her child, miscarried from stress, the healer said, though Sarah suspected it was guilt that killed the baby. She'd known about the breeding program, known what Marcus had done, and said nothing. The other women who'd been victimized, 17 in total, had been found and freed. Some chose to stay in Blood Moon territory, building new lives far from the packs that had betrayed them. Others returned home, but with resources and protection that Darius personally guaranteed. The captured Lycans had been welcomed back as heroes, survivors, and slowly, painfully, they were healing. "Mama! Papa!" Ilara had escaped from Tobias and was racing toward them now. "The ceremony's about to start. We have to go." "What ceremony?" Sarah asked innocently. Ilara rolled her eyes with all the exasperation a 5-year-old could muster. "Don't pretend. I know it's Aunt Maren's mating ceremony. Everyone knows. I heard the servants talking." "Nothing gets past you, does it?" Darius scooped Ilara up, tossing her in the air and catching her as she shrieked with delight. "You're going to make a terrifying queen someday." "I'm not going to be queen," Ilara said matter-of-factly. "I'm going to be an explorer, like the ones in your books. I'll discover new territories and make maps. And oh, can I have a sword for exploring? Absolutely not, Sarah and Darius said simultaneously, then looked at each other and laughed. Maybe when you're 6, Tobias offered, grinning. Tobias, don't encourage her. She's going to be a warrior anyway. Might as well start training early. They made their way to the great hall, still bickering good-naturedly. This too had become routine, the easy back and forth of a family that chose each other daily, that had been forged in trauma but tempered into something strong and true. The ceremony was beautiful. Maren, fierce, brilliant Maren, stood with her mate, a gentle healer from the Southern Territories, and they spoke vows that made even Kyle wipe suspiciously at his eyes. Kyle himself had softened over the years. He still watched Sarah with protective intensity, but now it was familial rather than suspicious. He'd become Ilara's devoted uncle, teaching her to fight and strategize, while simultaneously spoiling her with sweets and stories. I never thought I'd see this, Kyle murmured to Sarah during the reception. He gestured at the crowd. Lycans and wolves mingling freely, children of both species playing together, barriers that had stood for centuries crumbling. When you first arrived, I thought you'd destroy everything. Instead, you saved it. I didn't do anything, Sarah protested. You survived. You chose to trust when trust had been destroyed. You loved a broken king and let him love you back. Kyle smiled, rare and genuine. That changed everything. After the ceremony, as the sun set and lanterns were lit throughout the gardens, Sarah found herself alone with Darius on a balcony overlooking the grounds. Happy? He asked, pulling her close. Impossibly so. She leaned into him. Watching Ilara below playing with a group of children, her laughter bright and free. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that I get to have this. You deserve this, deserve everything. Darius turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her cheeks. You saved me, you know. That day in the snow when I found you, I thought I was saving you. But really, you saved me from becoming my father, from letting pain turn into cruelty. You showed me what real strength looks like. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. We saved each other. We did. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. And I wake up every day grateful for the storm that led me to you, even though I tried to stab you, especially because you tried to stab me, showed me you had spirit. His smile turned wicked. Plus, I have a scar now. Makes me look more dangerous. You are dangerous, Your Majesty. Only to people who threaten my family. His expression sobered. Speaking of which, I got word today. The last of Reeves's breeding facilities has been shut down. The final 3 lycans held prisoner have been freed. Sarah's breath caught. That's all of them? Every single one. It's over, Sarah. Truly over. What about the women, the ones we couldn't find? We found them, all of them. Some had children, hybrids like Ilara. We've offered them all sanctuary here or support wherever they choose to live. Darius's voice was fierce with satisfaction. And we've changed the laws. Any lycan or wolf found running breeding programs will face execution. Any woman victimized will have full legal protection and resources. It will never happen again. Not while I'm king. Not while we're king and queen, Sarah corrected softly. She'd accepted the title officially 2 years ago, after much debate, and Ilara's insistence that Mama needed a crown too. The council had been split, but Darius had simply declared it and dared anyone to challenge him. No one had. Sarah had proven herself a dozen times over by then anyway. Her work reforming Omega rights, establishing safe houses for abused wolves, creating educational programs, it had earned her respect even from the most traditional lycans. Papa, Mama, Ilara's voice drifted up. Come dance, they're playing the good music. Darius laughed. Our daughter demands our presence. She gets that from you, the demanding thing. She gets everything good from you. He took her hand, brought it to his lips. Her courage, her kindness. her ability to love fiercely, even after being hurt. They descended to the gardens where someone had started a bonfire and music played. Ilara grabbed both their hands, pulling them into the dancing crowd, and Sarah let herself be pulled, let herself laugh and spin and celebrate. Later, much later, when Ilara was asleep and the guests had departed and the stronghold was quiet, Sarah stood in the nursery watching her daughter sleep. Tobias appeared in the doorway, his usual visit to check on Ilara before he left for his own quarters. "She had a good day," he said softly, moving to stand beside Sarah. "Thank you for including me. Always." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Your family, Tobias. You always will be. I know I can't change how she came to be, but you can love who she became, and you do? That's what matters." Tobias nodded, emotion thick in his throat. He kissed Ilara's forehead gently, whispered, "Good night, little warrior," and left them. Darius appeared minutes later, wrapping his arms around Sarah from behind as they both watched their daughter sleep. "She's going to change the world," Sarah whispered. "She already has, just by existing, just by proving that love is stronger than hate, that healing is possible, that families can be chosen as well as born." Darius's voice was thick with emotion. "Look at what we built from ashes, Sarah. Look at what survived." Sarah looked at their daughter, at the life they'd created, at the future spreading before them full of possibility instead of pain. She'd started in the snow, bleeding and broken, certain she was dying. But she'd survived, she'd healed, she'd loved and been loved in return. And that, Sarah thought as Darius led her to their chambers, as they lay together in the darkness sharing whispered words and gentle touches, was the greatest victory of all. Not vengeance, not justice, but this, choosing joy after sorrow, building family from fragments, transforming trauma into triumph, one day, one choice, one fierce act of hope at a time. Outside their window, snow began to fall, gentle flakes catching the moonlight, but inside, there was only warmth. 20 years later, the council chamber was packed with representatives from every territory. Lycan and Werewolf delegations sat side by side, still an unusual sight, but becoming more common with each passing year. And at the head of the table, radiating confidence and authority beyond her 25 years, sat Queen Ilara Bloodmoon. Sarah watched from the gallery, Darius beside her, as their daughter negotiated a complex trade agreement with the patience and wisdom of someone 3 times her age. "She's magnificent," Darius murmured, pride evident in every word. "She is," Sarah agreed. "Did you see how she handled that territory dispute? Brilliant." Ilara had chosen to become queen after all, much to her childhood self's horror, but she'd done it her way, reforming ancient laws, breaking down barriers between species, championing the vulnerable while maintaining strength. She wore 2 crowns now, one lycan, one wolf, queen of both, belonging to neither, transcending the divisions that had once seemed insurmountable. "Ready?" Tobias appeared beside them, grey threading through his hair now, but his smile still warm. "For what?" Sarah asked. "Dinner. Ilara invited us, said she has news." The news, delivered over roasted venison and honeyed vegetables, was exactly what Sarah had suspected. "I've met someone," Ilara said, trying for casual and failing completely, her joy too bright to hide. "His name is Kieran. He's from the Eastern Territories, a diplomat's son, and he's—" "Wonderful," Sarah finished, smiling. "We know. We've had reports. You've been spying on me." "We prefer the term taking a healthy interest in our daughter's well-being," Darius said mildly. "Papa." "He seems like a good man," Tobias offered diplomatically. "Strong, honourable." "He is." Ilara's expression softened. "And he knows everything. About how I was conceived, about the trauma, about all of it. And he loves me anyway. Loves me because of who I am, not despite where I came from." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "That's all we've ever wanted for you. Oh, sweetheart, to be loved for exactly who you are. Later, as they walked through the same gardens where Ilara had climbed walls and played as a child, Sarah stopped at a bench overlooking the valley. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked Darius quietly. "When you found me in the snow? Every single day?" He sat beside her, took her hand. "Best decision I ever made. You saved my life. You gave me a reason to have one." He lifted her hand to his lips. "Everything good in my life traces back to that moment, to choosing to stop, to help, to save someone who needed saving." "We both needed saving," Sarah corrected. "We just didn't know it yet." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over mountains that had witnessed so much pain and triumph, death and rebirth. Somewhere in the stronghold, Ilara was planning her future. Tobias was writing letters to his other children. He'd married a few years ago, had a family of his own, but Ilara remained his firstborn, his miracle. And here, on this bench, Sarah felt the weight of the years, all the battles fought, all the tears shed, all the victories won. "If you could go back," Darius asked suddenly, "knowing everything that would happen, the pain, the trauma, the struggle, would you change it?" Sarah thought about that night, the snow, the betrayal, the moment she'd been certain she would die. Then she thought about everything that came after. This life, this love, this family built from brokenness into something beautiful. "No," she said firmly, "I wouldn't change a single thing, because it brought me here, to you, to Ilara. To a life I never dreamed possible." "Good answer." Darius pulled her close, and they watched the stars emerge one by one, marking the darkness with light, the way they'd marked each other's lives, transforming tragedy into joy, despair into hope, endings into new beginnings. The snow had tried to bury them once, but they'd grown gardens instead. And that, Sarah thought as Darius's heartbeat steadied against hers, was the real magic. Not the mate bonds or the political triumphs or even the hard-won peace between species, but this, the choice to love after betrayal, to trust after violation, to build after destruction, to plant seeds in frozen ground and tend them until they bloomed. Blood on the snow had been their beginning, but love, fierce, messy, imperfect, chosen love, was there forever. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share, and subscribe for more.